another direction, as we do time after time after time. We just go to different places in the conversation. So much to talk about, as you know, as I'm here in the nation's capital, very busy place. And of course, with the 78, soon to be 79-year-old president running like he's 25 years old, we just try to keep up. My next guest, the Honorable Gregory Slayton, author of the critically acclaimed Portraits of Ukraine, A Nation at War. He served as the U.S. ambassador to Bermuda under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama. I want to be the ambassador to Bermuda, I think. How do I apply for that? Anyhow, he's here to talk about President Xi. And we've been talking about this for the last few weeks with different folks. Gregory, thank you for being here.
Great to see you, Steve. Always good to be on your show.
Always good to have you. Look, there's a rumor, and we've been talking about this for weeks because it's our understanding that maybe President Xi had a stroke about a year ago. We can't confirm that, but there was a reshuffling of the power structure. Now, Xi, over many years, eliminated all of his competition. We saw him get dragged out right in the middle of the big Chinese Communist Party gathering, right? He came and got the one guy, and they let him right out of there in front of everybody, basically saying, don't screw with us. But rumor is, over the last year, Xi has lost his grip on power, and his exit, according to some, is imminent. What do you believe?
Well, of course, China is, as Winston Churchill said about the Soviet Union, a mystery wrapped in an enigma surrounded by a question. So nobody really knows, because that's one of the problems of communism. You know, in democracy, you have elections, they can be messy and stuff, but at least you have some understanding of what's going on. Here you have no understanding, but there certainly are many, many indications that Xi has lost power. And my sources tell me it's highly likely that in the next 60 days, he will either go into a ceremonial position, or he will retire entirely and be replaced by, I've got a couple of names that are front runners right now, but I don't think it's been decided.
Here's the thing. I talk to people like Gordon G. Chang. He's a pretty good expert. I talk to Gordon
Absolutely.
oftentimes.
I love Gordon.
I talk to my friends over at the Epoch Times. Nobody has a name. If you have a name, Gregory, you're a little bit ahead of the folks that I talk to all the time. Let's have them.
Well, I do have a name, but again, I'm not sure. I'm not saying I'm sure.
Of
but
course
the
you're
name
not. I mean,
keep hearing
speculation.
is Yang Wang. Yang Wang he's 2 years younger than Xi. He is a reformer. He was sidelined 2 years ago, but he is a favorite of the reform, the folks that have basically taken power now, because Xi's
all right. So hold on.
Here's what
we've got to sort out. This is really important.
Sir.
You know,
yes, sir.
Chairman Mao might have been called a reformer by some. Of course, he killed 50 million of his own people in the Great Leap Forward, which is a leap into, you know, they don't even teach that in school anymore. The Great Leap Forward should be taught in every school. It should be mandatory education of how he murdered millions of his own people, but that's for a different day. Yan Wang, when you say reformer, what do you mean?
I mean pro-free markets, pro-democracy, pro-strong correction to the right. Now, don't get me wrong, not in the American mold, but in the Chinese mold, what that means is someone much more like Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping was, in my humble opinion, the best. He made a lot of mistakes. The one-child policy was under him, and that's been a disaster for China. But Deng Xiaoping was a reformer. He did lead to stronger relations with the West. And that's clearly what China needs. China is in a world of hurt. Their economy is in free fall. Population demographic disaster is ongoing for the next 20 years. It's super bad. And they need someone who can help lead them out of this pit.
When they say their gross domestic products is increasing 5 and 6%, that's simply not true. We know that. We know that from people that I know that are in China that look at the factories and say, look, the factories, some of them are running at 20 and 30% capacity. They can see with their own eyes. When Donald Trump's tariffs were put in place, it really kneecapped Chinese industry. They can say what they want, and Donald Trump's critics can say what they want. But he has inflicted tremendous pressure on Xi, and that might be what ends up ushering him out the door. So do you think if you get a reformer, would that bring us back from the brink? Look, you've got these efforts underway in China with new aircraft carriers, heavy bombers that can release 1,000 drones. I saw this technology not long before I saw what Ukraine was able to do with drones to the Russian Air Force.
Right.
These are all sophisticated weapons, the AI advancements. Does it put us in a better position with China, or are they still our adversary and still our enemy?
Well, that remains to be seen. Certainly, it puts us in a better position. And let me just speak to the military threat. And you're right, absolutely, that is. In the last 45 days, dozens of high-ranking PLA generals have been sacked, cashiered, downgraded, including the two who are responsible for the Eastern Theater. Those are the two who would oversee any kind of Taiwan invasion, and they have been replaced by people who are not loyal, generals who are not completely loyal to Xi Jinping. And that is one of the biggest signs. That's happened many, many
So,
times. Xi
okay, so
Jinping is, Mhm.
let me be clear
Go
about
ahead.
this. The
Yeah,
generals that were sacked were Xi Jinping's lieutenants. They were his guys.
correct.
His
Correct.
guys are now out.
Absolutely
So
right.
what you're telling me is when this, and I don't know if he had a stroke, but there's a lot of evidence that that probably happened. Something, some medical
Yes,
condition that reduced his capacity about a year ago. So what you're telling
correct.
me is that the military at that time basically was able to extricate itself from the power structure of Xi's government, insulate itself as it often does, and then restructure the military in somebody's direction to be less pro Xi and more pro Yan Wang or whoever it turns out to be.
That's exactly what it appears to be. Let me tell you one other interesting thing, Steve. Xi Jinping's name and picture has not appeared in the People's Daily, which is, of course, the CCP organ, right? The daily, basically, it is the CCP newspaper. He hasn't appeared there for almost 2 weeks. And that's very unusual. So there's a
So
lot
no
of signs
picture,
pointing
no
this way.
article, nothing.
Other Chinese leaders are on the front page. I mean, sometimes you hear but it used to be just an ode to Xi Jinping. The whole thing was about his brilliance and
Right.
blah blah blah, and that's no longer true. Let me just
Man, I
mention,
like you,
Steve.
Gregory. You got the tea leaves. You got some good intel
Well,
here.
thank you, brother. Let me mention why that's important for us and why that's important for Ukraine. By the way, thank you for mentioning my book, Portraits of Ukraine, A Nation at War. It is an Amazon bestseller, and all profits go to really good pro-Ukrainian charities. So if your listeners are interested, I hope they'll check it out. Hopefully it'll be a blessing to them, and it'll certainly be a blessing to the charities who we're supporting. But without Xi Jinping, what Russia is going to be fighting this war on its own. And that's something it cannot do. So this would be a huge geopolitical boon for the United States and the West.
It doesn't seem that Russia can fight it with China's support or Iranian support. I mean, look, we all thought that war would be over in 2 weeks. I'm not a
Yes.
supporter of either side. I look. I don't think the charity should. I think charity I'm all for. I don't think
Yeah.
the charity should come from the American taxpayer in the form of $100 billion, and I've not changed my position on that, and I'm not going to. So,
Okay.
Gregory, I appreciate you being here. You come back anything. You've got the best intel so far on
Yeah.
Xi, and
Thank
so
you,
I'm gonna
Steve.
I'm gonna mark this down June 5th and circle it because your predictions, if you're right, I'm bringing you back. I'm gonna say, man, you nailed it. Gregory, thank
Thank
you.
you, Steve. Okay. God bless. Thanks so much.
God bless you. There you have it. Latest and greatest. I'll be back.